completely unique experience. And it's a combination, you know, we'll never do again, because this is the end of the platform effectively. So the reason this car is special, the reason we wanted the 110 was that the clients who come in for the car are buying a moment in time that we won't do again, because we can't pair this engine, gearbox and so on together.
Sad, isn't it, that really?
It is.
But equally it makes it all the more poignant and special.
It does indeed, yeah. And
Yeah.
I think that's what the collectors that buy this car will be buying into.
Brilliant. Oh, crikey. Wow, it is literally like son of Victor, isn't it? What's its platform then?
So it's not the same wheelbase as anything else, so it's longer than Vantage, slightly shorter than DB11.
So it's a sort of custom size then, as
Yeah,
it were.
wider track, front and rear than those two cars, so than Vantage and DB11.
It is wild, isn't it? We'll save the interior because the interior is unreal. Let's start here.
Yep.
I'm going to ask the obvious first question. What is the engine?
So, 5.2 litre
Okay.
twin turbo V12.
Okay, all right.
715 PS and over 750 Newton meters.
Okay, wow. So obviously it's taken a lot of inherent styling cues from Victor. That is part of its plan, right? It's a sort of junior Victor experience.
For sure, Victor was a huge impact for us. We did a one-off customer commission and
Yeah.
the reaction was incredible. So we had a lot of people in touch with the brand saying, you know, what else can you do? Can you build something else in that kind of style? The era that it takes from is, you know, very much from the 80s, but with a very modern take on it. We had the V8 Vantage in the 80s, plus a race car from the track called the Muncher. Ferocious race car, very kind of muscle car styling, but it had these kind of iconic circular headlights and this huge body tapering to a really tight sort of front. So a lot of the inspiration from there, and then combined with the transmission choice, and that was really why we wanted to bring this to the street now as a real kind of celebration of analog driving.
So where has the gearbox come from?
As you know, we had a 7-speed dogleg gearbox,
Yes.
Which was available previously in the Vantage. Wasn't really the right gearbox for this application, too much power and torque.
Right.
So we went away and developed the 6-speed gearbox, which is really slick shifting, really positive action. Obviously, everything uprated to take the power and the torque, but it's an incredible transmission. It's really, really engaging, really chunky, proper kind of old school driving style, very, very engaging.
I wouldn't jump to this conclusion so soon, but when can I drive this thing?
Very soon.
Soon? Yeah, really?
Absolutely, yeah. So we've revealed it now because it's 110
Yes.
years of Aston Martin, 110 examples of this will be built. We wanted to reveal it this year in the anniversary, but then put it straight into production. So it goes into production in the 4th quarter. We've done all the development work, all the mule work and the prototypes. So yeah, across the summer you can drive the car.
You've just heard that. I'm gonna hold him to that. Right, just talk to me about cooling, because there's a lot of engine in there.
Yeah, hence these extra cutouts in the top. So there's
Yes.
a lot of kind of styling here. The cutouts in the top, but this big horseshoe in the bonnet here is, you know, for drawing air in through the front and over the rads to cool the car. The front end, of course, is super wide, but it pulls out this extended grille. Unusually in Aston, you know, we always have a metal grille always. In the outer edges here, we've got this mesh, again for cooling through the V12. So there's a lot of cooling needs to happen. It really is wedged in there, and obviously tuned up to 715 PS, so it's, you know, it's a lot of power as well.
Sure. When we were talking about DB12, there was a lot of chat about new suspension components and advanced traction control. Is this almost the opposite end of that, in that because it's manual, rear-wheel drive, and probably designed to hoon?
Yeah.
It's all about traction off, is it?
Yeah, no, not quite. So we've put a lot of the learnings generally in our tuning at the moment. So since you drove DBS 770 as well, the
That
ultimate.
was a massive step on.
Yeah, and so all of those technologies and approaches are in here. So we've taken out a lot of the compliance in the steering rack, so you get a lot of feel through the column. It does run the Michelin PS5, so it's got the very latest tyre in the AML compound. So plenty of grip. But equally, what we've done with the traction system is allow it to rotate nicely in corners, break a bit of traction. Obviously, you know, that's twice as fun when you're in a manual because you're kind of
Sure.
managing the car with both feet and your hand as well. So it's kind of, there's a lot of fun to be had off center.
I'm assuming it's coming on carbons as standard.
Yes.
In terms of options, it's more of colours and materials, really, is it? It's
Yeah. So technically, the car is as is. So the power level, the carbon brakes, everything else. We wanted the car to be right as it was, but each car will be a commission with Hue by Aston Martin. So each client comes to the studio, meets with the design team, and then commissions the execution of the car.
What a journey to be on, huh? So, have you experienced the development car?
Yeah.
Go on. What's it like? What's it like?
It's mega. It's
mega.
Absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
What we wanted was something, we talked about this phrase, like putting the V12 in your hand. So many cars now are really, really powerful, but almost kind of anesthetized. That, you can control the power really well, you can travel at high speed, there's no drama. Here, what we wanted was every gear change was an event. And so it's fun from really low speed. It's incredibly rapid in gear.
Right.
But that satisfaction of making the transition second to third, third to fourth, and really nailing the gear change was something that we really focused on. So it's got a great level of drivability, so low speed clutch control's fine. We want it to be used. We want it to be used every day. So it's not horrible to drive at low speed. It's really nicely balanced. But at speed is when it comes alive. You think about kind of a nice B road, A road, where you're flowing between corners and going up and down the box. It's absolutely addictive.
This is the kind of chat that the automotive industry needs more often. Everything he's just said there, bottle it up, put it into future cars, please. That would be excellent. So, ratios of the box, is it sort of bespoke and custom to the experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a relatively short final drive, but it's quite a compact box. It's quite snick snack as you go through, makes a nice sound. Obviously it's open gated as well, so we wanted that kind of mechanical view through the box. But it feels very tight, very modern in its execution, even though the theory of the car is kind of taking it back a little bit more analog. What you get, in your hand is something very modern, very crisp in terms of gear change.
I am unaware of a car over the last 5 years that caused a stir quite like Victor did.
Yeah.
So the fact that this thing exists is highly cool. You guys seem to be taking the diffuser thing and going 11 with it, don't you? These days. I mean, there's diffusers and then there's this thing. Look at that. Wow. Triple exit exhaust.
Yeah, so there's a lot of work going on at the back here. I mean, it's a huge diffuser, as you say, but equally, there's quite a big kind of gurney off the top here, this kind of lip. We wanted an integrated design without additional wings or kind of active aero that spoilt the lines. Diffusers are really getting air quickly out from underneath the car, pulling it down, and then equally on the top, you've got downforce. And allied to that is the rear screen has been replaced with this new aero feature.
So you've installed a camera here, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In lieu of rear view mirror.
Yes.
And then obviously the high mounted stop lamp as well.
With it being a smaller production run, has that allowed you any flexibility in the characteristics of the exhaust tone?
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's it's obviously a triple pipe. It's a straight cut kind of motorsport style exhaust. Incredibly loud, as you would expect. Spits flames as well, which is very cool.
All right.
It's just a reaction of having quite an open, free flow exhaust system on the car. Again, part of that raw experience, part of that kind of... Equally, you've got some higher tech features like the stop lamp technology, these kind of blades from Valkyrie and Valhalla as well. So this is that mix that we're trying to bring of the modernity. It's a modern Aston, but it's done definitely in the style of something, from our heritage.
So even though it's based on I'm assuming the turbo V12 from DBS.
Yes.
You've managed to make it flame and sound pretty spicy.
Yeah, in DBS it's, we call it the brute in the suit. It's kind of, there's a refinement role there as well. Here it's raw.
This is just the brute, no suit.
Absolutely, it's just the brute.
Phenomenal, what a thing. I mean, sculpturally incredible, isn't it?
The whole body is made out of carbon fibre, so that allows you to be really precise and very intricate with the forms when you're working with carbon. So it's a very detailed body, and obviously that reduces a bit of mass on the car as well.
Okay. Crikey, that's an interior, isn't it? Wow. I think one of the many defining features of Victor was the interior styling. This has trickled through really well, hasn't it? How much fun did you have making that? Wow.
This is obviously the centerpiece. It's the hero of the interior. That's what you're here for.
I mean, there's open gated and there's no gated.
Yeah.
quite something.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming with the architecture it's built on, the infotainment system is previous gen.
It is, yeah.
But you
can see,
do have updated screens.
Yep, new screen, just for better clarity, and again on the driver information display.
Talk to me about this then, in terms of when you're starting to develop the ethos of a car and what this thing allows you to do. Did you start with like a blank sheet of paper and go, this is how we want it to drive? Or did you give the platform to the team and go, come back to us with something fairly hardcore?
Well, the brief was clear. It wasn't necessarily pick this gearbox or that one or go develop something new. It has to be raw and engaging, but it also has to be slick and modern. There are still a small number of manual gearboxes out there that are available in performance cars. So there are benchmarks, and you do need to be technically very advanced as well. You can't be complacent on that. The brief was that, raw, but with a level of sophistication, and that's why when we drove the mules, we tried a couple of different boxes actually in the original phase, and we came back to, we wanted a 6-speed, it had enough ratios, there was no need to go further, but also Victor had a 6-speed, and whilst we couldn't use that exact configuration or box because of the level of torque, this has much more torque than that car. We wanted to evolve that, so that's what we went for, and from the first drive, once that was installed, it was incredible. We all went out in a highly disguised mule, actually across Warwickshire. It wasn't anywhere foreign and exciting.
So good.
But then the car has done most of its development work as ever over in Europe and Spain in hot weather testing and everything else. So it was just immediately likeable, immediately drivable, like nothing else in the range. And then just to have this V12 in your hand at the top here was just incredibly exciting.
Tell me you can feel the heat from the transmission coming through
you
here.
Can.
This is such good news.
This is the other bit with the open gate. Cool. This is the other thing that we talked about this. We were sort of balancing that sophistication with rawness, and is it in driver intent and is it design intent? And in the end, we were like, this is absolutely what it's about. You can call the cabin back down if you want, but
you can fill it back with some heat.
Yeah, it's just great. You drive through a section, you go back for a gear, and you feel that warmth coming up through the gator, and it reminds you, the car's alive, it's working, it's breathing with you. It's really, really exciting. Perfect. The height of the gear stick, we debated a lot about, where to put it, and it can look quite prominent from some angles, but it's ergonomically, it's perfect.
Yes, you can kind of feel it as soon as you're there.
It's
right there for you.
It's exactly where you want to go.
Interior materials. This looks new.
Yeah, new. So again, bit of fun, but we wanted to play with some of the history of the company and combine it with the modern, with the carbon fibre and so on. So the tweed is from Elgin in Scotland, which is both a supplier and a kind of traditional material we've used throughout our history, right back to DBR1, in '59 that had tweed on it. Used back then as it's hard wearing, but of course it lends a kind of completely different look and style to it, and particularly fun pairing it with a full carbon fibre race seat. And it depends, clients can take a whole different choice of tweeds if they want, have a suit made to match if they wanted as well, but equally people can put leather or Alcantara in the car if they want something more modern. Completely unique experience. And it's a combination, we'll never do again, because this is the end of the platform effectively. So the reason this car's special, the reason we wanted the 110, was that the clients who come in for the car are buying a moment in time that we won't do again, because we can't pair this engine, gearbox and so on together.
Sad, isn't it, that really?
It is.
But equally it makes it all the more poignant and special.
It does indeed, yeah. And I think that's what the collectors that buy this car will be buying into.
Brilliant.
How you doing? Yeah, good.
Looks like you've been having a lot of fun.
Yeah, team love this one.
What's
it's just a bit unleashed.
Did you have to get Victor back in the studio at all, or did you just have it in your...
No, we went and had a look at it at one point, just to sort of get our heads around it. Obviously, we knew it fairly well in the first place, but it's always these cars live in the flesh, don't they? It's the reaction to them. So we did go and have a look at it. But we also just went through all the old race cars and stuff like that, all the really oddities. And Alex mentioned the the one that really resonated, which is Muncher, which was just, you know, the V8 of that era was a beast anyway, and then you get to Muncher that was just wild, and it was just, I think we liked it because it showed the thinking of the time. You always had to rewire yourself from today, where everything has to be as slick as possible. And it was just like, you know, little things like this part on the side, this box vent on the side. You know, you had to almost be more brutal than you know, like, oh, I would have flowed it in. And,
sure.
But here you wanted to exaggerate all those things and just sort of make them stand out. And that sort of squareness, and it's not bulkiness because the car's lithe in the end, but the way it fills the corners of the cars is something of the era that in a way today we're always trying to like sculpt the corner of the cars massively.
What's it like, sort of from a brain and team adapting to your design language day in, day out? As you mentioned, it's so flowing and sort of, you know, almost an organic shape. Yeah. And then you've got to go to step outside of that world and go boxy and old school. Like how is that from a
we talked about it every day basically. You had to keep in mind, because there were, you know, even things like all the plan view shapes of the car, and look at the side shape of the grille. You know, it's like we used to call it the tidal wave. So actually, it's got a sharp nose, but it comes back out. It had this real jaunty out front out here. Yeah. And again, in the day, they just, when they made a front splitter, they just went, right, box. We're just going to make it big.
Yes.
And that was it. There was no sort of, I'm going to do a CFD analysis for 6 weeks. It was like, they just went for it.
But actually, in contrast to that, you also have some fairly trickery.
So we can't help ourselves.
Too, right?
Yeah, so things like this bridge wing on the front that allowed us just to get that shape down, and it blends right into the headlamp surface in there. So it's a secondary read that's like a really modern, sophisticated aero thing, but you wouldn't, on first read, it's not there.
I'm assuming these headlamps then, these aren't off anything.
No.
This is a
No, so all the lamps on the car, unique to the car. Wow. So again, this car's inside and out, this wonderful mix between, you know, all carbon fibre body, lamps developed for a hypercar, mixed with 70s, 80s brutalism.
For anyone unfamiliar, can you provide a top line as to why making your own lamping is a really big deal? Because it's actually a massive pain, isn't it?
Yeah, but basically the rules, whether you're low volume or high volume, the rules, the tooling required is identical. So the investment is enormous. You know, we're making 110 of these.
Yes.
And you've got to be able to justify, work out the business case that these lamps are needed, and you know.
Per unit, then that's an expensive lamp.
Yes, per unit it's a very expensive lamp. Yes, which is, you know, the very intelligent system we have on the rear lamp, because you're actually able to change the number of blades, the layout of the blade. It took a while to develop it, that you can reconfigure it, but it allows us to do cars like this very, very well.
Right, talk to me about the sill.
Well, it's the sill, isn't it?
It is. It's its own...
unapologetic.
It's its own continent, isn't it? I mean, look at it. It's huge. Actually, I think you probably get a better appreciation for when the doors open. Look at that. The size of this thing. It is, just hand for context, that is a substantial sill.
But it's like that all around the car. It's unapologetic. A sill is a sill. Just make it as wide as possible. Fill the, you know, square the car up in every way.
So even though you've gone for sort of traditional, exaggerated, flatter surfaces, pretty much everything also has this contemporary twist of aero in it.
Yeah,
too,
all around. Diffuser, side sills, front has all got that. You know, we've spent the last few years doing things like Valkyrie and Valhalla, and you can't unlearn some of the little bits and treatments that you have in there. So that's, you know, a wonderful mix. Same on the inside as well. You know, the center air vent there uses the same carbon 3D printed tech that we use in Valkyrie. You know, billet, machined aluminium, walnut, and 3D printed carbon. All in one little space,
cool, isn't it?
And then of course tweed as well at the other end of the scale.
Yeah.
Tweed with carbon fibre.
Yeah. It was just an amazing environment, isn't it? I think one of the many defining characters of Victor was the interior in terms of styling. Yeah. But it's just like saddlery almost. It was incredible in there.
Yeah, you got a little bit of saddle in here. So the door pull through there has got a saddle leather pulse, billet aluminium here for this part, machined from solid.
So these are all one of one, had to tool it specifically for
everything you see there is unique. Yeah.
Wow.
We mentioned it earlier, lighting was a really difficult one, getting that all to work in the car, get it legal. Things like the exhaust, what we wanted, because everyone was just like, it's got to sound epic. You can't make a car like this and it doesn't sound epic. Yeah. So it was like pushing that and pushing the limits of suppliers and what we could do, again, for 110 units.
Yes. Talk to me about this diffuser. It's kind of, I'm seeing a bit of Valhalla here.
Yes.
And then obviously there are design traits as you touched on earlier. We've got this sort of Vulcan cum Valkyrie inspired.
Yeah, Valkyrie and Valhalla tail lamps. It's the same blade technology that we use in there. And obviously in here we've just sort of exaggerated and you've got this sort of vent out the back.
Yeah.
That these blades just slot through and come through there. And you know, there's again mix of languages because there's sort of this diffuser, which is sort of quite a modern thing, but there is a brutality to it on purpose. It's, you know, as you mentioned earlier, you come around the car, it's quite squared off corners, cam tail above it, very, very clean, just the word mark and the wings on it. And that sort of contrast of technology and old school sort of meeting again. You know, that part there's the part across the back, the Brightway, is machined from solid.
Crikey, that is beautiful. Isn't that amazing?
And that's the sort, and again, that's the benefit of doing low volume, is you can actually make sense to make those from CNC billet machined.
So talk to me about this cascading aero carbon here.
Again, we were just like, you know, it's when you're at low volume, you can just do things that normally you can't get away with. So we just like, why do you need a release screen? Actually, camera technology. Having driven, you know, we've got quite a few cars, we've done it for quite a few years, and actually once you're used to it, it's really good. Actually, the vision out the back's even better. So the minute you do it, you think, right, actually there's a second opportunity here. So we have this cascading aero, and the car is actually very, very, from an aero point, very good. I think the aero team weren't convinced that it was going to be at first. But I think with all the tricks and everything that we played, you know, the side sills do work and things like this do work. So actually, from an aero stability, high speed stability, the team came back and were just like, actually, this is really good.
This is bang on.
This is really good. But you know, that's why cam tails exist. You know, you read, you know, watch the story of GT40 and everything, and the cam tail on it. They work. They're good.
Box section arches then. Is this a functional component to sort of diffuse pressure out of the arch?
Yeah, so it's air off. So it's a model today, but if you see this, these blades run about this long and basically join onto the front of the arch. So they're basically depressurizing the front arch, taking lift out the front and basically flow down the side. And they look cool.
And they look cool.
And they look cool.
They look really good. And all of the exterior panels are carbon?
Yeah, all carbon. Yeah.
Wow. Does that help when it comes to forming? Like in terms of...
Oh, from my side, I love it. I mean, you can see, you know, I can make a bridge wing. If you imagine trying to make this out of pressed aluminium or anything, you're like, you know, you can't do it.
Okay.
So it just allows you to push the limits always on body form.
To create shapes.
And we do, and we take it, we've learned over 10, 15 years I've been here and using carbon fibre, we know to use those tricks because they're the bits that make the car special.
That's it. So. Right, speaking of special, let's hop inside. I'm going to swap sides now because I was in the drivers earlier. So
obviously, the thing is this. Actual model's got a bit of movement in it just so you can sort of understand it. And it was, I think the project was quite interesting because very early on, we had a prototype, and driving that, I mean, the thing's, you know, a little hooligan. And, you know, that third to fourth action is just like you come out of the car going, okay, I've got a mental image what this car's going to be now.
Is that an unusual way of doing it? Like being able to feel what the car's ethos is and then going back?
It tends to be. Normally prototypes come later. It depends. It is slightly unusual, yeah. So having that feeling early on was great. I think it helped form the project, yeah. It was done for the prototype, but we were all like, I like that a lot.
Let's keep that. So all of these then, these are all billet, machine, single pieces.
And you imagine this piece, we do left and right hand drive, so they actually a completely different machining op for the other side. But because they're billet, you can do it, it costs no more to do it.
Yeah, of course. So have you made a shifter as iconic as that since DBS? Because that's got that sort of feel about it of like beautiful sculpture.
Yeah, no, probably not since DBS. I mean, Victor, obviously, it takes its inspiration from Victor, but yeah, DBS, Crichton's head, as it was known, which was an interesting thing because it was, of course, boiling hot in the summer and freezing cold in winter, but somehow you loved it.
It just
for
works, doesn't it?
all that character that it gave.
Yeah.
And this, obviously, you can get it in a number of materials, so you can get it in walnut, carbon, aluminium.
Okay.
And always sort of with this completely spherical, you know, perfectly fits your hand form.
There's just something about, I love the juxtaposition of this, just the piece of wood in the middle of all this carbon. Yeah. It's very, very cool. And then the saddlery continues.
Yes, so bespoke extra luggage in the rear environment here, all saddle leather. Again, sort of talking to the craftsmanship element.
The options must be endless.
Yes, I mean, again, inside and outside. On the outside, we've done a very cool livery package. So you basically have got sort of almost a building block system of these sort of the era style graphics, and you can basically place them all around the car. I think it's something like you can choose 4 or 5 and mix them all together, and then you've got of that, you've got something like another 20 odd colour choices that you can do. So it will take a while to spec the car in.
What a journey. Congratulations. Thanks for showing us around, and that's all I'll say. Thank you.